You've been surrendering your autonomy every single day without even realizing it. Every time you sought validation from people who would never truly understand you. Every time you justified your choices to those who had already made up their minds. Every moment you invested emotional currency in relationships that offered nothing in return. You gave away pieces of yourself, your clarity, your direction, your inner peace, and they consumed it all. But that chapter closes now. I'm going to reveal 7 timeless philosophical principles rooted in Stoic wisdom that will teach you how to build an impenetrable inner fortress, how to achieve your goals without needing external approval, and how to become so grounded in your own values that others' opinions simply bounce off you like arrows against stone. Most people live reactively. They're caught in an endless loop of stimulus and response. Someone criticizes them, they defend. Someone questions their choices, they explain endlessly. Someone creates conflict, they dive right in. They believe this is strength. They believe constant engagement proves their worth. But they're mistaken. The truly powerful operate from a different framework entirely. They don't react impulsively. They don't over-explain themselves. They don't waste their finite energy on irrelevant people. They treat their mental and emotional resources like precious capital that must be invested wisely. Because that's exactly what these resources are. Consider the most influential philosophers, leaders, and visionaries throughout history. What do they share? A remarkable selectivity about where they direct their focus. They don't respond to every voice. They don't validate every opinion. They don't give their presence freely to whoever demands it. And this discernment is precisely what makes them unforgettable. The ancient Stoics understood this principle 2,000 years ago. They recognized that true power isn't about dominating others through force or words. It's about achieving mastery over yourself. It's about being so aligned with your own principles that external noise becomes irrelevant. It's about choosing deliberately who and what gets access to your attention. Over the next 7 minutes, I'll break down philosophical frameworks that will fundamentally reshape how you move through the world. You'll discover why emotional restraint is actually a form of strength. You'll learn how to distinguish between what you can control and what you cannot. You'll understand why your greatest influence comes not from visibility, but from the integrity you maintain in silence. This isn't about becoming cold or disconnected. This is about genuine self-respect. This is about reclaiming the narrative of your own life. This is about becoming someone who cannot be moved by the opinions of people who don't matter. Now, take a moment and affirm this. I am the architect of my own mind. Let's begin. Principle 1. Your attention is your most valuable asset. Everything you give your focus to becomes your reality. This is the fundamental truth that most people never grasp. Every single time you grant someone your attention, you're making a significant investment. You're allocating your mental bandwidth, your emotional reserves, and your time itself. And like any investment, you should demand a return. You should ask yourself, does this person add value to my life? Does this interaction elevate me or diminish me? Am I choosing this, or am I allowing myself to be chosen? Yet most people never ask these questions. They respond to every criticism. They engage with every drama. They explain themselves to every skeptic. They spend hours crafting responses to people whose opinions should hold zero weight in their lives. And what do they receive in return? Exhaustion, frustration, a hollowed-out sense of self. The Stoics had a concept called premeditatio malorum, negative visualization. But there's another practice equally important, conscious selectivity. It means understanding that your attention is finite. It's your most renewable yet limited resource. Once you give it away, you can't get it back. The people who truly operate from a place of power do something simple but radical. They create boundaries around their attention. Not everyone deserves access. Not everyone deserves a response. Not everyone deserves a conversation. They ask one crucial question before engaging: does this serve my growth or my purpose? And when the answer is no, they simply move on. No elaborate explanations, no guilt, no second guessing. Here's what happens when you protect your attention this way. You become a scarce resource yourself. When you don't respond to every provocation, people wonder why. When you don't show up to every drama, your presence becomes valuable. When you don't explain yourself constantly, your words gain weight. Imagine receiving a message designed to provoke you. Your instinct might be to fire back, to defend your honor, to show them they didn't get the best of you. But what you're actually doing is playing their game by their rules. You've just handed them exactly what they wanted: your reaction, your energy, your power. Now imagine reading that same message and choosing complete indifference. You acknowledge its existence internally, but you grant it no real estate in your mind. You move forward. That person sits wondering why you didn't engage. They check to see if you read it. They craft follow-up messages. They tell others about your silence, searching for answers that will never come. Meanwhile, you're unbothered, undisturbed, untouched. This is the power of guarded attention. You become impenetrable unless you decide to open the door. And you only open that door for people who have genuinely earned that privilege. From this moment forward, treat your attention like the philosopher treats wisdom, as something sacred that must be protected. Not everyone deserves it, only the worthy do. Affirm this: my attention is my power. Principle 2. Silence is your most eloquent statement. We live in a culture obsessed with being heard. We believe silence equals weakness. We believe not responding means losing. We believe the person with the last word wins. This is fundamentally backwards. Silence is not passivity. Silence is a choice. And when wielded consciously, silence becomes your most devastating tool. Think about what happens when you respond to provocation with more words. You've entered someone else's arena. You're playing by their established rules. You've validated that their words mattered enough to warrant your engagement. You've confirmed that they got under your skin. And now you're both locked in an exhausting cycle where nobody wins. But when you respond with silence, everything shifts. The dynamic inverts. The person who attacked you is left talking to a wall, getting absolutely nothing back. No validation, no engagement, no proof that they affected you. The power has migrated entirely to you. The Roman Stoic Seneca observed that the greatest power lies in being unmoved. He watched politicians and leaders throughout his life and noticed a pattern. Those who responded to every insult, every accusation, every rumor, found themselves trapped in endless cycles of defense. But those who simply ignored their critics, those critics eventually exhausted themselves and became irrelevant. Here's why silence is so psychologically devastating to the person seeking your reaction. Human beings have a fundamental need for closure. We want understanding. We want cause and effect. When someone attacks you and you go silent, their brain cannot compute the equation. There's no resolution, no explanation, no clear outcome, just emptiness. That emptiness becomes an open wound in their mind. They replay the interaction obsessively. They construct narratives to explain your silence. They search for meaning in the void. And all the while, they're burning mental energy on you, energy you're not spending on them at all. I've observed people becoming genuinely tormented by silence. Days pass, weeks pass. They're still wondering why someone didn't respond to them. They're still constructing theories, still hoping for acknowledgement that will never come. This isn't cruelty. This is simply the natural consequence of their own need for validation, meeting your refusal to provide it. There's another dimension to the power of silence. Every word you speak is information. It's ammunition. Every explanation you give reveals what bothers you. Every defense shows where you're vulnerable. Every justification exposes your insecurities. But silence? Silence gives them nothing. They can't distort words you didn't speak. They can't use emotions you didn't display. They stand powerless. Now, I'm not suggesting you never speak. There are moments when your voice must be heard, but those moments should be rare. They should be strategic. They should matter. When you speak infrequently, your words carry disproportionate weight. People listen because they know you don't waste language on trivialities. Think about how you listen when someone typically quiet suddenly speaks. You lean in. You pay attention. You assume it must be important. This is the power of selective speech. Silence isn't weakness. Silence is discipline. Silence is control. And most importantly, silence is a weapon that your opponent cannot defend against. Affirm this: my silence speaks louder than words ever could. Principle 3. Strategic presence, not constant availability. Here's where most people make a critical error. They assume power comes from visibility. They believe they must be everywhere, proving themselves constantly, maintaining a relentless presence. They see withdrawal as abandonment. But this is backwards. Real power comes from making yourself scarce. Complete isolation isn't the goal. That's just avoidance. But strategic presence, being intentional about when, where, and how you show up, that's where influence lives. Think of the difference between two scenarios. In the first, someone is perpetually available. They respond immediately to every message. They always make time for others. They show up to every event. They're constantly trying to maintain relevance. How do you feel about them after a while? Probably unappreciative of their effort. Their constant availability devalues their presence. They become a utility rather than a treasure. Now consider someone different. They appear when it suits them. Sometimes responsive, sometimes taking days to reply. Sometimes fully engaged, sometimes distant. Sometimes present, sometimes absent. You never quite know when you'll hear from them next. How do you feel? You think about them more. You value their time more. You wonder what they're doing when they're not with you. You hope for their attention. The Stoic practice here is called premeditatio, but applied to your presence rather than your problems. You meditate on how you want to be perceived, then you engineer your availability accordingly. This isn't manipulation. It's intentional design of your own life. This principle applies everywhere. In professional relationships, the person who's always available becomes the person everyone dumps work on. But the person who's selectively available becomes someone people have to earn access to. They become valuable. In personal relationships, constant accessibility kills mystery and respect. But strategic withdrawal, being fully present when you're there but not constantly reachable, creates something powerful: appreciation. People begin chasing instead of being chased. People begin valuing instead of assuming. The key is staying in the game while refusing to be controlled by it. You participate on your terms. You engage when it benefits you. You withdraw when it doesn't serve your interests. This creates uncertainty in the minds of others. They can't predict you. They can't control you. They can't take you for granted. Uncertainty breeds respect. Unpredictability generates intrigue. And when you're both respected and desired, you've entered a different realm of influence entirely. Your absence becomes a communication. Your unavailability becomes an asset. Your boundaries become your power. You don't need to vanish from the world. You just need to make the world work to maintain a place in your life. Affirm this: I choose when and where I show up. Principle 4. The philosophy of strategic non-engagement. There's a psychological phenomenon worth understanding. When you ignore someone, their mind doesn't rest. It spirals. It searches for answers that don't exist. It constructs elaborate narratives trying to decode your silence. This isn't you doing anything to them. This is simply the nature of how human consciousness works when it encounters an unsolved puzzle. You become a mystery they can't solve, and that mystery consumes them. The Stoics understood the power of withdrawal as a teaching tool. By refusing to engage, you're not punishing someone. You're simply removing yourself from their reality. And in that removal, they face themselves without the distraction of your presence. Consider what happens when someone sends you a message designed to provoke anger. You have choices. Option 1. You respond with equal intensity. You've now entered their frame. You're playing their game. You've given them what they wanted, proof that they affected you. Even if you win the argument, they've won something more valuable, confirmation of their importance to you. Option 2. You respond with understanding and explanation. You take the time to help them see your perspective. But now you've given them your time and energy. They've successfully drawn you into their world. Option 3. You don't respond at all. You read it. You feel nothing. You delete it and move on with your life. The person who sent it sits in uncertainty. They wonder if you saw it. They question whether you care. They construct theories. They obsess. And you're simply living your life unbothered. This isn't about being cold. It's about being liberated from the need to prove yourself to people who haven't earned the privilege of your response. Think about the people who genuinely drain you, the ones who always have a crisis, the ones who constantly need something. They don't need your engagement. They need your validation. And every time you respond, every time you help, every time you explain, you're teaching them that your attention is available for purchase through emotional manipulation. When you stop responding, something shifts. The spell breaks. They must either solve their own problems or accept that you're not their source of validation anymore. Your indifference isn't cruel. It's honest. It says, you are not my responsibility. Your problems are not my problems. Your need for validation will not be met by me. This principle extends to criticism, to gossip, to all forms of unwanted engagement. When you don't respond, you rob people of the thing they're really seeking, evidence that they matter to you enough to disturb your peace. Affirm this: I am unmoved by what doesn't serve me. Principle 5. The art of selective elimination. Not everyone in your life deserves equal consideration. This sounds harsh, but it's actually an act of wisdom and self-preservation. There are people in your orbit who actively work against your interests. There are people who consume your energy without reciprocating. There are people who undermine your growth under the guise of friendship. These are not people you need to gradually distance from. These are people you need to completely remove. The Stoics had a practice of examining relationships and eliminating those that didn't serve virtue or growth. This wasn't done with anger or drama. It was simply a recognition that some connections are incompatible with the person you're becoming. There are 3 categories worth addressing. First, your active adversaries. These aren't competitors or people who disagree with you. These are people actively working to sabotage you. They spread misinformation. They undermine your efforts. They smile while planning your failure. Most people want to expose these people, to fight back, to prove their accusations wrong. But this is a trap. Every time you engage with them, you validate them. You give them a platform. You make them relevant. Instead, simple elimination. Stop acknowledging their existence. Keep building. Keep growing. Let your success be the only response they receive. Watch them become tormented by your indifference to their schemes. Second, the perpetual critics. These are people who create nothing but consume everything critical. They don't build. They don't contribute. They exist only to tear down. They're addicted to negativity because without a target, they're nothing. Here's the truth. They need you more than you need them. Their entire identity depends on having someone to criticize. Without you, they're irrelevant. So when you respond to them, when you defend yourself, when you try to prove them wrong, you're feeding their existence. You're giving them the oxygen they need. Cut them off completely, not with anger or explanation, just indifference. Let them scream into the void. Let them write their endless critiques to an audience that's moved on. Third, the energy parasites. These are the most dangerous because they wear the mask of friendship. They're not obvious enemies. They're not loud critics. They're the ones who slowly drain you without your noticing. Always a crisis. Always a problem. Always needing something only you can provide. They never improve. The problems never end. They're not looking for solutions. They're looking for an eternal audience. These people are psychological vampires. They feed on your emotional labor. And the cruelest part is how they make you feel guilty for having boundaries. They make you feel selfish for protecting yourself. But protecting yourself isn't selfish. It's essential. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot help others when you're depleted. You cannot be strong for anyone when parasites are consuming your vitality. With all three categories, the response is the same. Complete elimination, not drama, not explanation, not gradual fading, just cessation. Stop responding, stop appearing, stop giving. Remove them from your reality as though they never existed. Your time is finite. Your energy is precious. Your attention is sacred. None of it should go to people who diminish rather than add to your life. Affirm this: I choose who deserves my presence. Principle 6. Building emotional unshakability. You're not truly powerful if external events can shatter your internal peace. The reason people can manipulate you is because you haven't yet built emotional resilience. The armor you need is called equanimity, a balanced mind that external circumstances cannot disturb. Let me be clear. This isn't about becoming emotionless. The Stoics weren't advocates of emotional numbness. They advocated for emotional mastery. Feeling things deeply is human, but being controlled by those feelings is slavery. Most people are emotional hostages. Someone insults them and their entire day collapses. Someone disrespects them and they're angry for weeks. Someone questions their decisions and doubt creeps in. Their entire internal state is held hostage by external events and people's opinions. This is the ultimate powerlessness. The people who actually operate from strength are different. They care deeply about their principles, their vision, their purpose, but they remain unmoved by opinions, by disrespect, by people's judgments of them. External chaos doesn't penetrate their inner peace because they've built walls around what matters. How do you build these walls? First, you identify your emotional triggers. What makes you defensive? What makes you need to explain yourself? What makes you angry? What makes you doubt yourself? These are your vulnerabilities. These are the cracks in your armor. And people, consciously or unconsciously, will exploit these cracks. They'll criticize what bothers you. They'll question what makes you insecure. They'll attack what makes you defensive. But here's the practice. You systematize your response. Someone calls you lazy. You know your work ethic. Their opinion is irrelevant. No response needed. Someone misunderstands your intentions. People always create narratives. Let them. Someone disrespects you. Their disrespect says everything about them and nothing about you. Move on. This is the armor. When nothing external can disturb your internal state, you become impossible to manipulate, impossible to control, impossible to leverage. People will test you. They'll push your old buttons, expecting the old reactions. And when they get nothing, no anger, no defensiveness, no need to explain, something shifts. They either develop respect or they leave you alone. Either way, You've won. Equanimity doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you choose what you feel and when you feel it. Your emotions become tools you use rather than forces that use you. Affirm this. I am in complete control of my inner state. Principle 7. Victory through strategic patience. Here's what separates those who achieve their goals from those who merely chase them. An understanding that sometimes the most powerful action is inaction. Most people believe power is about constant activity, about fighting, about proving themselves, about moving relentlessly forward. But the ancient philosophers understood something deeper. Sometimes you win by waiting. Sometimes you succeed by refusing to participate in battles that don't deserve your energy. This is called patience in philosophy, but it's really about strategic timing and energy conservation. Consider a common scenario. Someone spreads rumors about you. The reactive person panics. They defend. They reach out to people trying to control the narrative. They spend weeks fighting a battle against whispers. They exhaust themselves proving rumors false. But consider the alternative. You don't engage at all. You don't defend. You don't explain. You simply keep building. You keep growing. You keep moving forward as though the rumors don't exist. What happens? The rumors eventually become boring. They lose their power. Other news replaces them, and your continued success becomes a louder statement than any defense ever could. This is calculated inaction, understanding that some forces defeat themselves if you simply don't feed them. Some people become irrelevant if you simply stop acknowledging them. Some problems resolve if you simply refuse to make them your problems. The Stoic concept of amor fati, loving your fate, is really about working with what is rather than constantly fighting what shouldn't be. Some things are not worth fighting. Some people are not worth engaging. Some conflicts are not worth entering. The wisdom is in knowing which is which. There's immense power in conserving your energy for what actually matters, in refusing to be drawn into every conflict, in staying focused on your own trajectory while others burn themselves out in drama. Real strength is knowing when not to fight. Real mastery is understanding when to withdraw. Real power is having goals so clear and compelling that other people's chaos simply doesn't distract you. This is how you ascend, not through constant activity, not through being everywhere, not through proving yourself to everyone, but through strategic focus, careful energy management, and the wisdom to know what deserves your participation and what doesn't. Affirm this: I am strong in my patience. Final affirmation. You now possess philosophical principles that will transform how you move through the world. You understand that your attention is currency, your silence is power, your presence is valuable because it's selective, your indifference is transformative, your boundaries are protective, your emotional state is sacred, and your patience is strategic. These aren't dark tricks. These are timeless principles of wisdom that will liberate you from the prison of reactivity. Go forward and embody them.